Hello, and thank you for joining us on the Stay Healthy San Diego podcast, brought to you by Parker Physio, aimed at helping you live an enjoyable, fit, and healthy life in and around our community. And now, introducing your host and author of Aging Smarter, Dr. Matt Parker.
Welcome, everyone. It's another episode of the Stay Healthy San Diego podcast. I have an incredible guest today. Early on in this podcast, we've done a lot of guests that have been health and body related, and I believe to be a full-rounded person, we can't just focus on the body, the mind. We also got to worry about things like finances. So today we're going to be focused on financial health. I brought in an absolute expert in the finance category. I'm here with Dana Albert. Dana Albert is a financial advisor. He has a wife, 3 beautiful daughters. He's an Oceanside, Carlsbad native. He's a huge golfer. His office is just crazy stuff with golf. And he spent 20 years in the golf industry before moving over to be a financial advisor. Dana, how are you doing today?
Outstanding. It's Friday afternoon, by far my favorite day of the week.
Friday's usually a good day. So, Dana, I kind of want to start with the golf thing. So I know how much you love golf, and do you have a favorite golfer?
My favorite golfer, I have to say I'm biased to Tiger Woods because we're the same age. We're only about 45 days apart.
Okay. He's from my hometown, actually, Cypress. So. That's
right.
Yeah, up
Southern
the road.
California, boy.
Yeah. Okay. So you're a Tiger fan.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of a Brooks Koepka guy. I don't know how you feel about Brooks, but I just like his attitude. He's just very not. I feel like the golf purists really don't like Brooks, but I kind of like Brooks. I don't know how you feel about that.
You can't argue with performance, right? So there's performance and there's personality, and it's tough to have people agree with both. But numbers don't lie, and that's what takes home the hardware, not the personality.
Okay. Say no more. Dana, I know you're also, obviously you're an avid golfer. You and I haven't golfed together. I've only heard stories of how good you are. What is your current handicap? Be honest.
2.0.
2.0. Okay, I thought you were scratch. Okay, it's 2.0. Gotcha.
Close enough.
How often are you golfing right now?
I was just looking at it. So I'm averaging 1 round per week this year.
One round per week.
So 50 rounds a year is about right.
Okay.
Yep.
That's a lot of golf. A lot of golf.
It is. I think the average golfer is only around 8 to 10 times a year, and that'd actually be a lot. So.
And you're at 5 times that much. So you being 2.0 makes sense.
That's right. So the difference between average and avid, that would be it. Once a week versus, once a month. Okay. You
got a favorite course down here, Dana?
Absolutely. Starts with the G, also known as Goat Hill or the Goat.
Understood. So Goat Hill's the home course.
Yes.
But I want to start there, Dana. I want to start your golf background. I mean, you start in golf, you kind of transition to finances. How does that story go? Tell us a little bit about how you got there.
Well, golf is 100% attributable to how I got to where I'm at today. But I first picked up a golf club when I was 14 years old, really because I didn't have anything else better to do on a weekend afternoon in the summer between my 8th and 9th grade year. I loved baseball. I figured I'd play baseball through high school and go to college and play baseball, but a friend of mine, actually was also my dad's friend, gave him a set of used clubs, and he went to the driving range at Center City Golf Course. This is about 1990 or so, and Center City Golf Course had a nickname, and that is Goat Hill. And so he invited me to go to the driving range, and I didn't have anything else better to do, right? Baseball season was out. It was like the month of July or August. And so I went, and there was a guy at the driving range that was hitting drivers. And this was about 1989 or 90 or so, and that was when metalwoods were first coming out. And so I watched this guy just hit 20 or 30 drives, one after the other, with this metal wood and the sound of the golf club whipping through and impact when the ball hit the metal face just had me mesmerized. And so I said to myself, I'd like to be able to do that someday. And so I hit a few balls with my dad, didn't do very well, but watching that guy do that over and over, he was an athletic guy, just a blue collar guy, maybe with a t-shirt on, and a 16-ounce can of beer on the ground, just hitting drivers after driver, and
Mm-hmm.
I said to myself, I'd like to do that someday.
Gotcha. Okay. So you watch a man play golf, that kind of starts your golfing career,
Mm-hmm.
and then was that it? I mean, it just kind of took off, and
So
then you.
ultimately, what happened was going into my freshman year, that fall, playing baseball. I was a late bloomer, so I was a small guy. I was only about 5'2", maybe about 105 pounds, and so finishing up my freshman year playing baseball, I didn't have much of a future because of my size. So I ended up taking up golf full time after my freshman year at the age of 15, playing whenever I can. My first job, where I was paid an hourly wage, ended up being at Goat Hill Golf Course in about 1991. And so part of my compensation was to be able to hit golf balls on the driver range.
Okay.
And so I had a mentor. His name was Ludd. Locals in Oceanside would know who that guy is. And he inspired me to want to work at golf courses. And so I thought to myself, wow, I could be outside and play golf and get paid and also help other people with the game and just enjoy the atmosphere being around golf. And ultimately that's what I did, going off to college at the desert in Palm Desert to golf management school. And I worked at golf courses and other various aspects of the industry for 20 years. So from the ages of, a little over 20 years actually, from the age of 15 to about 38.
Okay. It's got to be there's a lot of time there. So
Yep.
you're working at golf courses.
Mm-hmm.
You meet the wife. When does she come into play? When's the
Mm-hmm.
family come into play?
So when I moved out to the Palm Springs area, mind you, coming from Oceanside, California, I never went anywhere. We didn't travel anywhere. We didn't go on vacations, and so I really didn't know what Palm Springs was all about until going out there to start college. And there was 100 golf courses out there, and there's some very high-end, affluent areas and private country clubs and public golf courses. And I ended up getting a job at a private country club, which is where I ultimately met my wife in the year 1999.
Okay.
And then I ended up coming back to San Diego in 2000, being out in the desert for about 5 or 6 years or so, and ultimately finished college going to Cal State San Marcos. And
So you survived Y2K, which
Yep.
is great. So we're in the year 2000 now.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's kids closely following by here soon in the next little bit, right? When do the kids come into play now?
So we ended up having our first daughter about a year after we started dating. So Brianna's she's 19 now.
Okay.
And so I was working at a private club in Rancho Santa Fe, and my wife was taking some classes at Cal State San Marcos. So I ended up finishing my bachelor's degree at Cal State San Marcos, and continued to work at a private country club in Rancho Santa Fe. And ultimately I wanted to work for a golf equipment company, because Carlsbad in North County, San Diego is the golf equipment capital of the world. And that was one of my biggest aspirations after finishing my marketing degree. And I ended up working for a manufacturer. It was a golf shaft manufacturer, and that's really right around 2006, 7, and 8 is really when I started to really understand the golf swing, but also moving outside of the hospitality industry in golf and getting into more of the manufacturing side and looking at the macros, right? Supply and demand, and number of golf courses out there, a number of golfers, and what is the industry doing? And so this was all going into the Great Recession, kind of around 2008, 2009.
Okay.
And that was right about the time that I started working on an MBA. And so the numbers weren't looking so hot in terms of where the golf industry was headed. Golf courses were closing 2 or 3 years before the Great Recession didn't even hit. So we overbuilt. You could attribute that to the Tiger era, possibly, especially in the 90s, where golf courses were popping up everywhere. But golfers, in terms of taking up the game every year, was not growing as fast as the number of golfers were actually quitting each year.
Interesting. Okay. So you notice this, the recession's kind of happening, you're in the manufacturing, you're in the equipment biz. When does the financial part come into play? Like, when does that transition happen? How do you start moving in that direction?
Exactly. So that's when, about 2009. So now looking at it, now that I'm educated, working in wealth management and helping people with financial planning and so forth, looking back at what happened in 2009 when the stock markets bottomed out around February or March of 2009. And so I felt that, my wife and I had to hit the reset button, and we went through all of our savings, and we lost our home, and so we had to start all over. And when all the dust settled, I looked at it and I was like, what happened? I had no idea what was going on that contributed to the Great Recession, and having to start all over from a savings standpoint was the epiphany, was what triggered me to say, well, how did that happen? How can I avoid that? That was one aspect. But the second aspect was really, being around country club atmospheres and talking with successful people, in particular business owners, CEOs, over a 15 to 20 year time period, just being out on the golf course and helping these people really enjoy their retirement. I had to ask those people, how did you get to where you're at, and what was your guiding principle? And it was really, the number one answer was always, it's not about how much money you want to make. You have to pick the lifestyle you want, and then you figure out what you need to do to achieve that lifestyle.
Fascinating. Okay. So you get this wonderful advice and wonderful wisdom, and then what's the next steps for you? How do you become a financial advisor then?
So I had started working on my MBA in 2008, 2009, and then all hell broke loose, so to speak, and everything was bottoming out, and I had to take a break and figure out where the next chapter of my life would take me. And so around 2009, 2010, I was not taking any classes, trying to figure out where I wanted to go. And so I was doing some research on what baby boomers were doing, because you figured most people might have the perception that, well, retirees will fuel the golf business. And looking at the numbers, well, they're not. So the baby boomers, their parents were the ones that fueled the golf business back when in the Palmer and Nicklaus and Trevino days, right? But baby boomers have far more activities that of interest than their parents did. And so I said, okay, well, if they're not going to be taking up golf, what's going to be their needs in the future? Because those tend to be the people that keep the economy going, because they're spending their savings that they've earned over the last 40 years in employment. And I found an article and said financial advice and financial planning is one of the top 3 services that baby boomers will need over the next 20 to 25 years. And that's when the light bulb went on. It took me 3 or 4 years after that. I didn't get licensed until 2014, and I wanted to make sure to finish my MBA first. So I was an MBA dropout. I went back and completed it. Once I completed that, I took a good 2 years researching where I wanted to start my financial advisory career, and here I am now.
Wonderful. Quite a journey. So you've been at it since, so if I have my timeline right around 2014, you've been doing the financial advising, and awesome. So it's been about a handful of years. And who do you currently help? What kinds of people do you currently help in regards to financial advising?
Because I spent so many years behind the counter, so to speak, at private country clubs or in a golf related business, the primary audience that I would interact with happens to be, we'll call it seniors or retirees, folks aged 55 and up. And one of the biggest stats a lot of people hear is, there's 10,000 baby boomers retiring every day. Well, that's 100% true, and it's going to be happening for at least the next 15 years. So with that statistic, I don't want to, the trend's my friend, right? I'm not going to fight it. I'm going to follow the path of least resistance. And these are folks that I feel very comfortable around because I understand by knowing that it's about their lifestyle needs, and that knowing how to talk about lifestyle and goals and really taking out the financial component of achieving goals and really focusing on behavior and what appropriates what behavior is appropriate to achieve those goals is the focus.
So I want to dive into that a little bit. The behavior, with the people that you do help, like what are the common mistakes you see people make when it comes to their finances? So, and that behavior.
So when I was finishing up my golf career and I was working in the manufacturing side, I worked in marketing. So in marketing, you're figuring out, okay, is there a need in the marketplace? What's the want, right? And if there's a want or a need out there, well, then you create a product or a service to satisfy that need or want. So I was always interested in consumer behavior. Why do people buy what they do, and why do they make the decisions that they do? And so what I learned in finances, there's a concept or a study called behavioral finance, which really takes into context people's personalities and behavior when they're making decisions based around the almighty dollar.
So spending habits and if they're saving, if they're all those kinds of things.
That's right. And so when I became a financial advisor, my initial thought was, boy, I need to be this really smart stock picker, bond analyst, and I really need to understand all the ins and outs of the appropriate types of life insurance people should or should not have, and really understanding interest and compounding factors and all of those things, and which I do, but I don't have to be an expert at that. At the end of the day, I really need to understand how a person thinks, right? How they feel and why they make the decisions they make. What is the purpose of saving $1, and what are they going to spend that dollar on in the future, right? Are you going to give it away? Are you going to donate it to a charity? Are you going to pass it on to children, grandchildren? What ultimately is the purpose of the dollar?
Fascinating. Yeah, there's a study out there. I know there's they took a group of younger kids, kindergartners, 30 people, and they said, I'll give you a marshmallow now, but if you wait 30 minutes, we'll give you 2 marshmallows later. And something like 70% of the kids took the immediate marshmallow.
That's right.
And then the ones that ended up waiting for the 2 marshmallows ended up being more successful later on in life when they did this study, 15, 20 years later. So that's pretty interesting on the behavior and the decision making as opposed to insurance and stock picking.
That's right. So that right there is a perfect description of a behavior that points to instant gratification, right?
Yep.
And so you look at this world we live in today, where we have access to information, products, and services literally in nanoseconds at our beck and call, right? And so when somebody is considering a purchase decision for a product or service, well, when somebody's considering what to do with their money, well, they're going to consider products, right, in the form of investments, right? Call it stocks, bonds, or mutual funds, and the service aspect, which is going to be, well, planning and a person that could identify risk and show where people might fall short in terms of risk management. And of course, the planning and guidance that comes along with helping people make those decisions. And so when we look at what we call the cycle of market emotions, which really fascinated me when I became a financial advisor, is this element of when do you get in or get out, right? So that might be a question that a lot of people ask. When should I start talking to a financial advisor? Well, I would probably say the day you earn your first paycheck, right? If that's age 16, that's the day you should probably talk to somebody, even if it's a friend of a friend, a teller at the bank, right? A financial services professional can help you to start out. But when back to that cycle of market emotions and how it ties to recognizing how behavioral finance works in this industry is, when things are great, right, and our emotions are running high, and let's say your business is going well, and your relationships are going well with your significant other, and if you have children, your children are doing everything you tell them to do, and boy, everything's great, you're excited, it's thrilling, and then it gets to this point of what we call euphoria.
Okay, understood.
Right? And so the markets can be like that when we're in a period that we are right now, and stocks are on one of the longest bull cycles in history, which means stock price growth, right? So if you've been in the stock market for the last 10 years after the Great Recession bottomed out, or started and the markets bottomed out in February, March of 2009, well, you've done nothing but probably double your money, maybe even twice, okay? And so many people right now can be like, oh wow, I need to get in on that because it's euphoric to see this success.
Gratification, instant gratification.
And I need to feel like I fit in, right? Because we live in a very superficial society these days, and people gotta try and get in and kind of feel like they're, they gotta, be with the Joneses, right? And so looking at when should people get into the market? Well, you should always be in the market, okay? But really, the amount of risk you take has got to be tied to a specific goal or an outcome. And I don't mean a goal or outcome as in a rate of return, be it 5, 10, 20%. The goal or outcome has got to be, okay, I funded my grandchild's savings for college tuition. I was able to save up 20% on a down payment on a home. I was able to set aside $25,000 for my alma mater, which I want to give away in 10 or 15 years. Those are the goals and outcomes that we focus on, not performance, because performance is directly related to how much risk appetite you have. And everybody is different, okay? Every single person is different. There's no two clients that are the same when it comes to the goals that they want to achieve and the risk appetite they have.
So Dave, I want to ask, because I think a lot of people are fearful of the stock market, right? Right now it's up, like you mentioned. I'm a physical therapist, right? My background's in healthcare. Do I need to understand the stock market to invest into it?
It would be appropriate to have a fundamental understanding of what the difference is between the stock market and the bond market and cash. But you certainly don't need to know the difference between, price earnings ratios of one stock versus the other, or what the duration risk and interest rate risk might be between a 5-year bond and a 30-year bond. Now that's getting pretty technical, and financial advisors and guys and gals like me that get nerded out on that stuff, well, that's our job. That's our job to know the ins and out of that, because we come to this industry probably because we have an interest in numbers. Maybe we're pretty good at math, right? Yep. And then those folks that are really good at that type of finance, you could get these letters behind your name that have a certification that you could advertise, showing you that you're really good at understanding certain investments over others. So yes, you should do some homework, or at least speak with a professional that can give you a broad understanding of what investments are available. But from the largest macro standpoint, you got the stock market, the bond market, and cash. And you just need to understand, really, all of these investment options come with risk. And when you're considering stocks, bonds, or securitized investments, nothing's guaranteed. They could lose value, right? These are not, stocks and bonds are not bank insured products like, FDIC insured certificates of deposit, where if a bank issues a certificate of deposit and the bank fails and they can't pay you your money back, your interest, well, then the government could come and bail them out. Now, that's not what stocks and bonds are.
Okay.
They are not guaranteed. You could certainly lose all of your money.
So I'm curious, so for people listening right now, like, do you have any like book recommendations or resources to start with to kind of get a better understanding and a better, feel for like what's happening in the stock market?
Well, there's back to that instant gratification, right? You could just do a simple search on the internet and type in that very question. I'm not a big book reader, mainly because I'm a slow reader, so it ends up taking up a lot of my time. But there's going to be 10 bestsellers every single year that are going to say, learn how to be a savvy investor, or investing in recessions, because that's a big fear right now, right? The potential for a recession, or a mild recession, or of course the opposite of a bull market, which would be a bear. And so people will be like, okay, how to invest in a bear market? So that means somebody's going to go out and look for a book and say, okay, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait for this bear market to hit, because then I'm going to jump in the market, I'm going to know what to buy, and I'm going to get all these great tips, and I'm going to time it perfectly. Well, are there good market timers out there? Sure, absolutely, right? The problem with market timing is you have to know when to get in and when to get out. So you have to be right twice. Now, you could be right now and say, okay, well, I'm going to wait and say, oh, recession's on the horizon. Well, sure, right? There's been, 25 bear markets in the last, since the Great Depression. There's been at least 25 bear cycles. Are we due? Sure, potentially. Could the bull market keep running on? Absolutely.
Okay. All right, I gotcha. And then, if you had advice or something right now, like, what's the best thing that someone can do with their finances today? I kind of want to talk to you now after this.
Sure.
Yeah, so a financial advisor sounds like pretty good advice to me. But.
Well, I could tell you, before you even start thinking about investments, let's go back to the basics, right? And so you asked me earlier, when should somebody really start talking to somebody about, investing, right, and financial planning? Well, one of the best tips that I ever learned was when I became a volunteer with Junior Achievement, and Junior Achievement strives to go out and educate young people on how money works. And this concept is called pay yourself first. Now, I'd never heard that before. It makes sense, make sure you save money, but what does that mean really, right? How much should I be saving first? So for every dollar earned, a great rule of thumb is, maybe everybody's different, but let's just call it 10 to 15% of every dollar earned should be put away for long-term savings, okay? And there's a couple great reasons for that. Number one, you have time on your side for the long-term growth effects of compounding interest, right? A lot of people say there's 7 major wonders of the world, right? What's the 8th? Compounding interest, right? So the earlier you start, the better, right? But there's also tax benefits to that, especially if you have the ability to, or you're fortunate enough to have an employer, or if you're a business owner yourself and you start a retirement savings plan where you can put away earnings that are tax deferred, or in other words, you don't pay taxes on the income, it just goes into a long-term savings vehicle. And then you don't have to pay the taxes on that until you actually withdraw it in retirement. So you're not required to take withdrawals from, say, a retirement savings account, 401k or IRA, till you're 70 and a half years old. So the earlier you start, the better.
But is there such thing as a too late? If
It's
I'm
not.
50, 60, and I haven't done anything, is it too late?
Absolutely not. So one of the fastest growing segments of our business in terms of our clientele is actually the 70 and 80-year-old.
Oh, wow.
And so you might be done working, and you might have accumulated whatever nest egg that might be, and you could be 60 years old. Well, you might live another 30, 35 years, and people today are living much longer than they thought they would. And so people are afraid of running out of money. Well, to help alleviate some of that fear, you have to come up with a wealth projection analysis of how long your money is going to last you based on what your lifestyle budget is. Again, going back to what is your lifestyle choice and what does that look like from a financial standpoint. And given the amount of savings you have and the lifestyle budget that you create, well, based on the savings you have or any pension, Social Security, or retirement income that might be coming in, we could give you a realistic estimate of when your funds might run out. Now, all of that is based on a certain risk appetite. So going back to how everybody's different, okay? Naturally, the more risk you take, it's higher risk, higher reward, right? And so if somebody has a lifestyle aspiration that requires to take a little more risk in order for a longer or a higher return in the long run, well, we need to calculate that and make sure you're going to be comfortable with that.
So it sounds like everyone's a little bit different. You customize it and make sure it's right for said person or said clientele. Okay.
And so think about it. So if you're a Southern California resident and you bought real estate, or maybe you're just buying real estate, some people may not have had the opportunity to have a 401k plan or put money away for retirement, but they bought real estate 30 years ago. And then maybe they bought an investment property in the 80s or 90s or 2000s, and they've seen the markets rebound. So they don't have any tax-deferred savings, but now they've got this real estate portfolio. And as you age and say you become 70, 75, or 80, well, a lot of folks, when they get to that age, they don't really like being a landlord any longer. And so they have to sell the real estate, and now you have a liquidity event. So maybe you didn't have tax-deferred savings, but your real estate holdings have been growing. If you live in San Diego, they're probably growing anywhere between 4% and 7% a year. Over the last 10 years, real estate's probably in the 7 to 10% range.
Incredible. Dana, this is absolutely wonderful information you share with us today. Where can people find you if they want to interact with you?
Well, I think it's best to connect on a personal level, especially if you're considering hiring anybody for any type of service for that matter, be it nutritionist, physical therapist, or financial advisor. You could check me out on my Instagram account. I'm just getting into social media. I really don't use social media for my business, but my Instagram account is North SD Golfer, just like it sounds, NORTH SD Golfer, and you see posts about me and my family and what we do in the free time, and it's easy to connect with me that way.
Awesome, and that will be in the show notes as well. So for all those that are listening didn't hear that, it'll be in the information. Let me ask you this, Dana: your favorite activity to do in San Diego that's not golf related?
So growing up in Oceanside, from Oceanside Harbor down to Swami's area, I love going to the beach, but I never picked up surfing. I was a boogie boarder, and I could say that because growing up in the 80s, we called it boogie board. So I like to bodyboard. Yeah. Our twins, we ended up having twins. I don't think I mentioned that. So our 19-year-old and then we got 9-year-old twins. They're just now getting in the water, getting them on bodyboards. So that's my physical activity outside of golf, and I absolutely love it.
Awesome. I'm in the same boat. I'm from Orange County, can't surf, done it like twice, and I probably gotta learn one of these days. But yeah, I bodyboard as well, so I think it's a fun activity. Last question for you: your favorite hidden restaurant or your gem in San Diego?
That's a tough one because there's so many good spots popping up. There's, especially if you look at what's going on in Oceanside, there's great spots. But I could tell you, just my wife and I personally, because we live in San Marcos, there's a little place, we love sushi. So
I love it. Good.
That's where we try to go for date night, little place called Sushi Huku.
Okay.
Off San Marcos Boulevard. It's as you get pretty close to the 78 on-ramp there. Great little humble spot. It's not one of those super fancy, overpriced restaurants, but great food, great service.
Wonderful to hear. Dana, I want to thank you again for being a guest on our show today, and have a great day.
Thanks, Matt.
Take care.
All right.
Thank you for listening to the Stay Healthy San Diego podcast, brought to you by Parker Physio. If your pain is preventing you from staying healthy and active, and you'd like to avoid surgery, painkillers, or just want to get back to doing the things you love in and around San Diego, we offer both a free ebook and free over-the-phone consultation to help you figure out the root cause of your pain and the next best steps for resolving it. Find our ebooks online at parkerphysio.com/health-tips. There you'll find ebooks for topics such as low back pain, sciatica, shoulder pain, knee pain, and neck pain. These quick-to-read reports will provide you with expert tips, tricks, and exercises to help solve your pain from the comfort of your own home. Just visit parkerphysio.com/health-tips to download your ebook and have it delivered directly to your inbox. We also offer free, no-obligation telephone consultations with a doctor of physical therapy to residents of San Diego. Just call us at 858-900-3361 or visit us at parkerphysio.com and click the Talk to a PT on the Phone button. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the Stay Healthy San Diego podcast.